For reaction, we turn now to former acting ICE director and a Heritage visiting fellow, Tom Homan. He is also a Fox Business contributor. Tom, I want to get into the details, but first, I just want you to speak to the shamelessness of the Biden administration's putting the blame on exactly the people who are trying to save the innocents along the border.
Well, it's disgusting. One of the most disgusting things I've seen. Governor Abbott has done more to secure our border and not only defend Texas, defend the United States. Look what Governor Abbott has done. He's arrested 245,000 aliens crossing the border illegally. Now that's meaningful because every one of those are vetted and every one of them are fingerprinted. And if they wouldn't arrest them, they would have added to the 900,000 gotaways. We don't know who the hell they are, where they're at, how many of them are terrorists, or how many of them are gang members. He has taken 342 million lethal doses of fentanyl off the streets because he seized them. He has charged over 14,500 people with crimes. He has taken 4,700 weapons off the street. Governor Abbott has not only did what he had to do to protect Texas, he protected the entire United States because most of these migrants, and as we know, 98% of this fentanyl goes to every state across his union. Governor Abbott is a hero. He's done more than the Secretary of Homeland Security. He should be the Secretary of Homeland Security.
Well, by the way, he's doing it at his own expense, at his state's expense. It's costing $3 billion for the operation. But I just want to read you a section of this letter from the Department of Justice, which, again, I think has hit a new low, and that's putting the bar pretty low already. Here's what they say. DPS, referring to the Department of Public Safety, may be discriminating on the basis of race and or national origin in its activities related to Operation Lone Star by targeting certain individuals for arrests for misdemeanor trespass violations and traffic stops based on their perceived or actual race or national origin. Now, we have to mention, by the way, that there was a National Guardsman, a 22-year-old African-American National Guardsman who's part of this operation, Operation Lone Star, who died trying to save migrants. By the way, ironically, at least one of those migrants was a drug dealer. But this wonderful guy, Bishop Evans was his name, he was a part of Operation Lone Star. Is he a racist? A black National Guardsman who sacrificed his own life trying to save migrants?
Of course not. When the White House was asked about him, Jen Psaki said he wasn't one of ours. Really? The man served in the National Guard in the United States. I mean, he's another hero. But look, the DPS is arresting the same people Border Patrol arrests. So why isn't DOJ investigating the Border Patrol, who they talk to, who they stop, and who they arrest? It's ridiculous. Once again, they throw that race card out. I got an idea for DOJ. Why don't you investigate the Biden administration's failure to secure the border, which has resulted in 112,000 overdose deaths from drugs streaming across the border because of the open border? Why don't you investigate the Biden administration for the nearly 800 migrant deaths on U.S. soil, the highest I've ever seen in my career? Why don't you investigate them for that? Why don't you investigate them for knowingly assisting criminal organization of Mexico in the trafficking of women and children in the United States? Because trafficking is at an all-time high. This administration is complicit in cross-border crimes. So DOJ, why don't you investigate them? There's bigger crimes occurring there, and I know that because I've been involved with the state of Texas. We've sued them. We're 4-0, and federal court has said they're violating the law, and that's why we won the case. So investigate the Biden administration, because we have federal judges sitting on the bench saying they violated the law. Investigate them.
Well, if there's a change in the House as a result of the midterm elections, I think there should be investigations. By the way, the DOJ, it's not just on border issues. You think of they're putting together a goon squad to investigate parents who are upset about what schools are teaching our kids. They actually were trying to label them as domestic terrorists, even though they tried to deny it. They had to come back and admit it. So this is the same DOJ. But you mentioned before the governor. Governor Abbott was just on with Larry Kudlow, and he spoke to what the DOJ is trying to do, what the administration is trying to do by its attacks on Operation Lone Star. Let me play the tape and get your reaction. Roll tape.
What Texas is doing is disrupting what they wanted to achieve. They want open border policies. They want all these people coming across the border. They do not want to follow or to enforce the immigration laws of the United States of America.
See, bottom line is they realize that the jig is up. We all know exactly what's going on here. That the border policy is a total failure. It is not closed at all, the border, as Mayorkas and others continue to say, and they just don't want that exposed any way they can possibly do it. And now they're doing it by sicking the DOJ goons on the folks of Texas.
Well, first of all, they ought to be investigating Mayorkas. He lied under oath to Congress. That's a felony. DOJ ought to be looking at that. But look, I'll say it again. Governor Abbott is an American hero. What he has done in Texas, he has literally saved millions of lives. If you look at the 342 million lethal doses of fentanyl itself, has saved how many of our young children from overdosing and dying? And he's taken thousands of weapons off. The Governor Abbott has done more than anybody in this country, anybody in the administration, any other governor, any other politician. He's done more than anybody, him and Ken Paxton, to try to save American lives, try to protect our sovereignty, and try to give us the safe border, which not only saves American lives, will save migrant lives, because he understands, too, a secure border saves lives. Because if you enforce border enforcement, less vulnerable people put themselves in the hands of criminal cartels, less migrants would die. That's a story back. So God bless, Governor Abbott. I'm behind him 100%.
Well, and God bless Bishop Evans, the National Guardsman who died trying to save actually a drug deal. I mean, he was interested in saving lives, not taking lives, not violating any civil rights law. I mean, these are heroes that are on the line, and to attack heroes is just so disgusting, isn't it?
Well, look, I've said it for a long time. In this administration, you're innocent until proven guilty, unless you wearing a badge. And God bless the men and women of Border Patrol. They're going to be up in arms over this investigation, because they are welcoming DPS down there and National Guard with them. They're overwhelmed. They can't handle what's going on. They said it's Operation Broken Arrow down there. They can't possibly contain what's happening. So they welcome the DPS and National Guard down there because they want to secure the border too. These men and women are national heroes, are doing the right thing, and DOJ should be ashamed of themselves. And hopefully we take Congress back in November. You're going to see a lot of investigations about the wrongdoings of this administration and how many lives were lost because of their actions.
Tom Homan, good to see you, Tom. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.